It's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Keep that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Jehovah Tiger.
What's going on, guys? And welcome to the 2-year anniversary episode of the War Cry podcast. I'm your humble, gracious host, Yehola Tiger. I'm going to start this episode out with one of my favorite stories. I had to give y'all something, but this is one of my favorite stories of the podcast, and this comes from my dad.
here in Oklahoma. And this involves my dad. His job requires him to travel, and he has to know locations of different places in order to complete his job. And he goes to this house, and it's just there's a kind of a house in the off to the back, and there's a house near the road. Well, he goes to the house that's kind of farther back in the driveway. He knocks on the door, knocks again. All of a sudden he hears this voice, kind of come, from behind the door. But it was off kind of the side, like it was someone sitting in a chair next to a window or something like that, or something along the lines of that. And the voice, says, "Hey, come on in. And he goes, "No, I can't, I just want to make sure, I can't, just for, liability, safety, all those reasons you got to give. You don't want to go into someone's house. Be going in there and getting cooked like Hansel and Gretel. No, but, he goes, no, I can't do that. But here I have, and the older, it sounded like an older lady. No, come on in. Real faint like. And he's like, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that, so he kind of, he said he's leaving, and he gets approached by a younger guy. And the guy goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" Thinking he's trespassing. And the guy's like, "Well," he said, "what are you doing here?" My dad's like, "Hey, well, I'm just here to, for so-and-so and in this house here." And the guy goes, and my dad explained to the guy that basically there was an older lady, asking him to come into this house, just right over here. And the guy goes, "What?" And he takes off. Well, come to find out, I guess nobody lives there, but that was basically the voice of his mother. My dad was hearing someone, that was his mother. And so he runs in there, and how, he basically thought, had to go check it out real quick, and there was nobody there, nobody in that house. And that's kind of a crazy story, because, we always miss our loved ones, and to think that just for a moment, you get to talk.
You get to see him again. I love that story. That's from my dad. But how's everybody doing tonight? Is everybody doing all right? I'm gonna be playing, different videos for my favorite stories. Some of my favorite. I got so many favorites. I can only do so many. They said something about giga data or whatever they call it. But on this episode, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. It is a wild world we live in. An even wilder world is over on the Patreon. The War Cry podcast is now on the Patreon. It's now on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. $5 a month. I got some pretty good interviews coming down the line that I'm gonna be reaching out to some people. I'm going to do an episode on the Patreon regarding the casino Bigfoot that I've been asking about for now 2 years. I've had another person come forward and give me some information on that. So I can't wait. I can't wait to share that. But I'm going to share that's going to be on the Patreon only. Another thing, obviously we'll be doing the live streams. Try to get them in. Every now and then when I can. I'm going to try to, do a little reformatting. As we get into 2025. But it's going to be an interesting ride. And with the 2-year anniversary, I'm a little bit motivated. I got a battery in my back, is what the young kids say, or the old heads say, whoever says that. But I got a little bit of a battery in my back, when it comes to the podcast. So I've had a lot of people sharing kind words about, how much content I've put out in the last basically month and a half. You got almost 14 hours of content with multiple different guests. If you haven't went back on my YouTube, there's a little section that says playlist, and I got the entire everybody who was on for spooky season 2024. It's in that one folder, and you can just 12 hours straight. So I know some of y'all be working, you got something to listen to on YouTube, and obviously you can go listen on the podcast, Spotify, Apple, but we got a lot to talk about tonight. We just a little over a week ago, we had cheers of joy and tears of sorrow. Donald J. Trump is our president elect, and I ain't gonna front on y'all. Ever since they elected him, the people, popular vote, and the Electoral College, things just ain't been right, y'all. Things has been wilding out. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. The first thing I want to talk about tonight is, did y'all see the UAP UFO hearing today? And this is, being live streamed on November 13th, 2024. They had a UAP hearing today. Multiple different whistleblowers and people have come forward and have confirmed. They've confirmed that UAPs, UFOs, what is a non-human intelligence is another one they use. What's the other one? I can't remember, but anyways, they've confirmed it today. Another thing that they confirmed today in that hearing was that our government has been covering it up for at least 100 years. At least. They confirmed that we've had multiple agencies and multiple, I guess you could say, non-governmental institutions find alien aircrafts and aliens themselves. One thing that's super crazy about all this, and I'm kind of shook by this a little bit, is I came to y'all like 6 months ago, whenever I did the aliens episode. I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't believe aliens. I had a hard time believing in aliens. I had a hard time believing all this. I had the theory, as we're reminiscing over the 2 years of this podcast, that they are people from the future. I have thought that for the longest time. In this Senate hearing, they confirmed that it is not, a lot of these spaceships are not, what do I say? They're not being manned by actual things. Now, some of them are, and I guess he used like not in artificial intelligence, but like mind intelligence. Like they can basically predict maneuvers that our best best airplanes or fighter jets, the best that they can do, that we can do. It's been confirmed that multiple countries have seen and documented and reverse engineered these UAPs. This is crazy. Like I said, Trump got elected, and now we are going in. No, okay, I'm not even going to go with Trump. I'm gonna go with Cat Williams. Cat Williams is like, he predicted this. He said all things will be revealed in 2024. And he came out and he said what he said, and he stood on business, standing on business. And he said things will be revealed. Well, here we are. Aliens are real. Now, who is going? Okay, they always say there's going to be some redneck out there that's going to be pointing his sniper, rifle, or his AR, or whatever he's got, his shotgun. He's going to be pointing at the sky, just shooting. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I've heard that. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think everyone's freaking out. I think everybody knew for a long time. I tried not to believe it. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I tried not to believe it. But here we are, 2024. Aliens are real. UAPs are real. Now, I'll say one thing about that that is kind of weird, though, that they've been hiding it. And I guess that's something that we don't really talk about, is that they were basically hiding the fact that they were trying to reverse engineer. It's insane. It's insane. Let's see here into the comments here. Prospecting USA. Good evening. How's it going? Thank you for joining me. Lisa Ray, how's it going? My wife's in here. Are lizard people aliens? Yes, allegedly. I don't know if those guys are real, even though they said that they're real. They live in the hollow earth, or the center of the earth. Lisa Ray says Elon Musk wants to send humans to Mars. He's going to be an advisor to Trump. Yeah, man. Speaking of Elon Musk, one thing about this too, though, he's always said aliens are real. He always, thought that. But he said something that weirded me out. Like, had me kind of like, what? What is he talking about? He did an interview, I don't know how long ago, with Jordan Peterson. And they're like 3 minutes into the interview, and they're just chopping it up, starting the conversation with pleasantries. And Elon had to get this out. I guess he was fighting for his life, trying to keep this in. But he brings up Memphis in ancient Egypt, and Memphis is like a little bit outside, of where those pyramids are over there. And he basically he starts talking about this. And Jordan Peterson's like, Memphis, like he just says Memphis. He didn't clarify it's ancient Egypt. He goes, Memphis, Tennessee. He said, yeah, that too. He's like, yeah, some people say that's, the pyramids get their energy from, from certain places, and Memphis is one of them. And he starts laughing maniacally, like really laughing. And Jordan Peterson's like laughing with him, but like with this face that like, is this supposed to be funny? He goes, yeah, it's funny, and is laughing maniacally. And Jordan Peterson's like, I'm actually kind of uncomfortable laughing. Why are we laughing? And Elon said, you'll see. I was like, oh man, I don't know. He gives me. I watched a small clip about him in his childhood, and I ain't gonna lie, he had the riz. He was rizzing it up. He might have been what's that song going around right now on TikTok? They call me the Rizzler. I'm the Panther dressed in black. If I give your girl the wrist face, there's no chance she's coming back. That was Elon Musk, but with the smart guy, Riz. And there was no chance your girl was coming back. She was gone because Elon was around. He's got money too, though. But he was always a weird dude. Like, he was always a weird dude. Always. Like, even his mom was like, yeah, I could tell by age 3 something different about this kid. Basically, he had already was like he was like reading encyclopedias, like just like they were normal. Like it's just something you read. And like he was reading all the Britannica stuff, where you learn little facts about this and that and whatever. He's like 4. Buddy, I wasn't even reading until I was like in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. Shoot, I still got a 3rd grade reading level sometimes. Sometimes it just hits, but he basically grew up and was always a weird dude. Like nobody really liked him. They didn't know how to talk to him. Even his family was kind of like, I don't know. His dad was beating on him, beating on his mom. Just not a good childhood. But he's like age 8, and he's like, hey, Mom, I want to live with my dad. His dad's beating him. Like, his dad is beating him up, and he's like, I want to live with my dad. But the only reason why he wanted to live with his dad was his dad had the Encyclopedia Britannicas. And, like, he wanted to keep reading those. And it's crazy to me that like he basically was like viciously bullied. He literally almost died. They beat like these school bullies, beat him half to death, and barely survived, according to him. And that he is now one of the richest men in the country, and trying to send people to Mars. And now he's an advisor to the president-elect. And he also might be the Antichrist. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have, and we ain't gonna have it here. That might be a Patreon episode. But there's a weird connection to me with Trump and Elon. I'm glad that Miss Lisa brought that up, because we was gonna talk about him and the connection with Donald Trump. I went down a rabbit hole. And be in mind, guys, this is the 2-year anniversary episode. We just wilding. We just going. We just gonna go wherever it goes. But I had forgot that there was a rumor or like a conspiracy theory that Trump was a time traveler. And I went down this rabbit hole. I probably read like 7 articles, lengthy articles, a little bit about physics. Some of that stuff, I was like, man, I don't know what they talking about. Like, it's over my head. So I was like, let me be the millennial and just go on YouTube or TikTok and try to find something. Somebody explain it to me where I'm not like, feeling like I'm stupid. And so there's this book that was written by, I guess his name is Andreessen Lockwood, I think is who that author's name was. And one thing about this guy is like, people I tried to look him up in multiple different ways. Like, this is one thing too, I'm gonna say, when it comes to research, Wikipedia, if you're pulling from Wikipedia, you're not getting a good source. Like, I remember like they used to hammer us, don't ever use Wikipedia. So now I'm only using like .gov, .org, different types of searches. And I was having a hard time finding this guy. People saying that basically he just kind of showed up. This Andreessen Lockwood. Anderson, I think is his first name. I could be wrong. But he just kind of showed up in history. He wrote these I think it was 3 books total. And he basically lived down the street from Nikola Tesla. Oddly enough. That's one thing that when you get down these rabbit holes, you're like, what, is this real? And allegedly, John Trump, which is Donald Trump's uncle, was the one that when these intelligence agencies, 3-letter organizations, came in and was like, hey, we need to get this. Mr. Trump, Dr. Trump, John Trump, got all of the Nikola Tesla research. And this is where the conspiracy, and that's a fact. People know that he was there when Tesla died. He was in Tesla's home. The problem is we don't know what happened after. Now, when he saw all of Tesla's work, it changed his whole life. He went into, metaphysics, basically, that genre, trying to figure out what time travel is. Now, allegedly, they say Nikola Tesla had already invented time travel and that it just needed to be tweaked. Is that true? I don't know. But they also say, because Donald Trump was very close with his uncle. And if you do a simple on TikTok, Donald Trump talks about his uncle. On Google, whatever, you'll pull up multiple clips about him talking about his uncle and how his uncle taught him things. He doesn't go into what he taught him, but he taught him things. So this is where Anderson Lockwood comes in. Back in the late 1800s, he wrote this book. I think it was called like Baron Trump's, Underground Adventures, type book. I don't even know the title of it. I just know Baron Trump's Underground Adventures. And there's 2 books of that, and then there's The Last President. And there's a lot of different things that are kind of weird. They say that I haven't read the books, guys, but they say, allegedly, that these books mention a man by the name of Pence, a man who was a celebrity type famous person who decides to run for president, and that man lives on 5th Avenue in New York. Talks about, him being the last president. And, that got everybody up. Everybody was worked up when they saw that he got reelected. Oh, everybody and their mama was going crazy over this conspiracy. That's why it came up. Do I believe that Donald Trump is a time traveler? I don't know. Probably not. Most likely not. 85% not. But here's something that's kind of more interesting. And it makes me kind of be like, There was a man by the name of John Titor who had written multiple articles on the internet back when the internet was like forums, basically. It was like old school forums. And he was leaving, different stuff on this website and, detailing things that are going to happen in the future. And nuclear war is inevitable, is how he said. That's kind of what he said. There's a lot of different things. You go look up John Titor. There's just so much. This topic is so nuanced. And it's so much information. I don't want to bore you guys with these level of details. But essentially, there is a slight connection between John Titor and Donald Trump. That people are like, the conspiracy is that Trump went back, back to 18, whatever. Or he went forward, He went forward. And that basically he had figured out that, now, like I said, we're going off the deep end, guys, because it's all conspiracy. But that basically he saw the future and said, oh my God, we got to change this. And in 2011, he decided to run for president. No, I'm sorry, not 2011. He got basically joked out the room. Basically, they were ragging on him, and then he ran for president in 2015. Anyways, but then he saw that and he said, "I cannot allow this to happen. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to step in the way." Now, here's where it gets kind of weird. Back in the 80s, there was a interview that he was doing, and I can't remember who the interviewer was. But basically, the interviewer, she goes, "Was there ever a time? I know you're very wealthy. You've done a lot of things. Do you ever feel like you'd run for president?" And he goes, "Only if they needed me." I was like, Did we need him? I don't know. That's up to you. It's up to your opinion. But it's interesting to say the least when it comes to Donald Trump being a time traveler. And, I'm not going to get into QAnon, but people have been posting that too. And I ain't going to get into that because I know how it goes with that, with those people. But and no offense if that's what you like and that's what you believe, but I ain't going to get into it. But getting back to aliens, beautiful, beautiful segue. They're real. They've been confirmed. We've been reverse engineering their technology, and we have been in communication with them. And another weird thing about it was that they're circling our military bases and our nuclear plants and where we store our nuclear warheads. They're spotted there. For a long time, people were saying, "No, conspiracy. That's not real. No. There's no aliens in the sky over our nukes." It's been confirmed. UFOs, UAPs have been watching us, and they've been giving off nonverbal cues, and is kind of how they said, but basically it says, "Do not do this." It's above the people's pay grade who came on here, but they think that they have been in contact verbally. They just can't prove it. Okay, let's see here. Aliens being from the future, or aliens are people, or us humans from the future, or like an alternate universe. That's kind of what I believe aliens are, and it still could be true. That aliens are basically us, just coming back and being like, "Hey, this is what's going to happen." Or like, "Hey, stay away." And that's why I think that nuke thing is interesting to me. Obviously, there'll be more revealed, but it was a concerted cover-up. All the 3-letter agencies, 4-letter agencies covered it up. They did not want the American people to know that these things were out there. For whatever reason, I don't know. They say aliens have been trading human test subjects for advanced tech. I ain't gonna lie, that man, there could be something. Eventually, I'll have Hunters from the Paranormal. Again, we didn't really get into aliens. I'd like to talk to him about that, and that's going to be on a Patreon episode because that can get a little spicy. Let's see here. I believe it was Eisenhower and the Majestic 12 made the deal to do this to get people for alien tech, but people also took more people for testing it. It's creepy. If you get a chance to watch A Tear in the Sky by Caroline Corey, it talks about aliens off the coast of California. It's Catalina Islands. They also talk about alien portals. I'm just reading comments, guys. If you're hearing this on, a little bit later, Miss Lisa says, "Yes, I will never let my kids use Wikipedia for research. A good place to get started, but never reference it." Facts. We would have free electricity, which we should have if Tesla had it this way. And I've heard he was a real inventor of the radio. I have heard that too, that Tesla was. I've read that somewhere, heard or watched people talk about it, because one thing about him, man, it's like, how did he die? Do we really know? It's like one day he just ended up dead. It's like the guy that invented the hydrogen car. Basically, you could get like 1,000 miles to a gallon of water, and then all of a sudden one day they found him, just gone. Don't know what happened. Heart attack, you know what they say. And it is proven that the CIA has used ice bullets They basically pierce your heart, and it makes it look like you had a heart attack. It's interesting. Look it up. But yeah, there's been a lot of weird stuff happening today. We had a that hearing. You know, I've seen a lot of different conspiracies going on about different things. But I'll tell you what is not a conspiracy. Mike Tyson will knock out Jake Paul this Friday. Mike Tyson will knock out Jake Paul this weekend. If you hadn't heard, Mike Tyson's coming back. The baddest man on the planet. He's back. And he will prove that on Friday. Not sponsored by Netflix, by the way. But I just don't understand. I don't understand the cover-up part of aliens. I don't understand it. Like, I never thought that humans or us would like lose their minds over this. Like they would just totally be like freaked out about aliens. Like we have been conditioned for I don't know how long that like Men in Black. That's another one. Men in Black. You have Alien. You have Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You have there's a movie on Paramount Plus called Significant Other. Like they are telling us, the movie industry has been telling us for years that hey, there's something out there. There is more to this world than just us. And that's one thing that I like once we finally figure out and we see aliens and they come down and say something to us, the next thing I want the government to do is say Bigfoot's real. That's the next thing. I need them to say it. Because people in this world don't, there's people out here that was, oh, Bigfoot's not real. There's no way there's a bipedal, quote unquote, primate out here wilding out like this. We would see it. It would be seen all the time. Well, it has been seen all the time. So we got aliens. Now we need Bigfoot. We need Bigfoot bad. It's just crazy. There's so much crazy stuff happening this last 2 weeks. Another kind of crazy thing I saw that has been floating around is I guess someone had put in AI, like into an AI system, and was like, "Hey, what is the most realistic timeline for humans?" And literally, it shot out like 50 movies. And basically gave us a timeline to where, like, how our demise is. And it ends in Planet of the Apes. What? You mean to tell me that these 43 monkeys that got out like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, that is the start. That is Caesar. That is the uprising. The 43 monkeys. So if y'all ain't heard, they're in South Carolina, out of this, God knows what they were doing to these monkeys. They won't tell anybody. They say, "Oh well, we've messed with them a little bit, and we've definitely had some crazy things happening, and they just happened to get out." Another thing too, like 28 days later was on there. I can't remember. It might have been on there, but with aliens or not aliens, with aliens is on my mind. With these monkeys getting out, if y'all hadn't seen the start of 28 Days Later, basically these monkeys was getting tested on, and they bit somebody, attacked somebody, and then that's what started the rage virus. Now, they caught one monkey, but they can't catch them all. It's just crazy out here, y'all. 2024, about to be 2025. It can't get any crazier. Like, what is going to happen? Is Christmas going to be canceled this year? Are they going to cancel Christmas? Are they going? Are we going to extend the year 4 days? Is it going to be December 33rd? Like, what's going on? Now, I swear to you, y'all are gonna listen back to this podcast when y'all hear this and be like, "Dang!" Like y'all gonna listen to back to this in like a month, and you're gonna be like, "Yeah, dang, Yahola was saying some crazy stuff, but hey, it got crazier than what it is now." Like, watch one of these monkeys bite somebody, and then now next thing you know, we're in a straight zombie apocalypse. Just craziness. Yeah. Lisa in the chat says, "I'm still waiting for Godzilla to appear." Now Godzilla's out there. We know Godzilla's out there. He's just wilding out. He just going like there ain't no nuclear waste going around. Which we are getting another Godzilla movie. Thank goodness, because the Godzilla Minus Zero was amazing. But I don't know what's going to happen, man. Like there's like like with Trump getting elected, there's just like a subtle anxiety. Like I can just feel it. And anytime I talk to somebody, I just feel like there's maybe it might just be me too, but there's just like a very thin layer of like anxiety that just is like taking over the country. I feel like, because like, what if like, the aliens were watching C-SPAN this morning, and they were like, you know what, it's time to come down from our big spaceships, and then, like if y'all remember that show V back in like ABC, like mid 2000s, and basically everyone is bebopping along. All of a sudden, they look up and like this spaceship is just sitting on top of like just right there. I don't know. It's crazy out here, y'all. But I was joking about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, but I'm not joking. So this Friday, if you guys hadn't heard, I'm giving you a lot of heavy. If you haven't heard, but Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul is going to be this Friday. And my timeline on Twitter, TikTok, and a little bit on Facebook has all been either Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, or aliens, or the election. And some of these clips of Mike Tyson, to me, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been scared of somebody like through the phone. Like I'm sitting on my phone watching his videos and being like, I do not want to be in the room with him. I wouldn't do it. I would never be in the same room as Mike Tyson when he's talking like this. I watched a clip of him and Joe Rogan, and he basically just tells Rogan like, yeah, man, there's something in me. I don't want to let the animal out. And Joe Rogan's sitting there like, what? I don't want to get the the animal, the beast, the natural born killer. And I'm like, yeah, no, he's crazy. He bit off Evander Holyfield's ear. Yeah, he crazy. An even nastier move is like a couple of weeks ago, Mike Tyson, there was a video that came out, and Mike Tyson gifted Holyfield's top of his ear back to him. That's savage, man. But I can't wait for that fight. A lot of it is nostalgia for me. I remember being a young kid, and we would watch. This is like before the internet. Like this is like before you could just go on and like, on your phone you could see, that the Tyson fight. You knew it was that night, but like you didn't know the outcome until like unless you went and got on your dial-up internet. But like one of the coolest things is like they'd always play it like the night after, so we'd watch it. And like when he came back, like I think in 2003 or whatever, or 2002, I remember being so hyped. I was so hyped for that. And then he ended up like he won a few fights and then got knocked out, I think by Lennox Lewis. But I'm so excited to have Mike Tyson back, but like he's almost 60 years old, which is crazy. But he looks the way he does. And like there was Jake Paul had just beat somebody, and he's like, yeah, Mike, I hate to do this to you in front of your kids, and just like going off and just saying all these different things. And Mike Tyson would just a straight face with these eyes. His eyes are crazy. He goes, he's Jake Paul is a killer on paper and in talk. He said, but I'm a natural born killer and I can't turn it off. I was like, man. Dang. I got scared. Jake Paul's dad was watching Tyson work out, like in their little, like back in the old days, they used to like parade him around and just like little box around and stuff. And they used to just, like show off his skills and whatnot. And Jake Paul's dad's watching Tyson throw like these crazy uppercuts and body shots. And he's like, nah, man, my son's going to die. My son's going to die this weekend. This is going to be a homicide, I think. Man, it's just, like I said, we got Mike Tyson fighting in 2024. What else, man? What else we got? There was a man. Now I can't remember. Somebody shared this. I can't remember where I saw this video on TikTok, but this video has been going around, and there was this man who I guess had faked his own death, and so this girl is just doing like like these people, these Gen Zers will just go walk up to someone and say, hey, what's your craziest college confession? Or like, hey, what's your whatever? And someone, people would be like, oh yeah, this girl's doing that. And she stops this guy on a bicycle and she's like, hey, what are you doing? Or whatever. Or what's your dream? And this man goes, to go to Uzbekistan. Well, come to find out, there's a guy that tried to, that faked his death and gave all his money, zeroed out all his accounts, and basically gave his money to this woman in Uzbekistan. And they thought they thought that he's dead, but they saw him on this little TikTok interview thing from someone who didn't really have a lot of followers, and that's been circulating. If y'all have heard that story, let me know, and share that with me because that's interesting. Because like this dude. Is he on the run? Did he kill somebody? Like, it's kind of crazy. You're just going to like fake your own death. But like I said, y'all, this, 2024 has been crazy. But, the 2 years of the podcast, as I mentioned earlier in the stream and in the episode in this show, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of my favorite stories over the last 2 years. There are so many stories that have been told on my show. All of it is available. Go check it out. I have all the episodes and Spooky Season 2024 in the playlist section on YouTube. So all you got to do is hit that. And definitely go and check that out. But this story, I haven't shared it in a long time, but it's one of my favorite stories from Mr. Derek Morris. Check it out.
Sio negad, dawage dawado, chi jay lage. Hello everybody, my name is Derek, Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. These stories are coming from, if you look at the map, they're very northeastern corner of Tennessee, right near the North Carolina border. I've got a couple of Bigfoot stories for you, Sasquatch, Nanyunwe, Uniwadowahi. It's got many names and many cultures. But this first story was told to me by my uncle. So I get into it. He tells me this happened in probably the early 80s, probably around September or October in deer season. He was out hunting. And he says to me, hey, I was out hunting and I kept getting a nervous feeling that I was being watched or something was following me. Kept looking around and never saw anything. Didn't really hear anything either, but he just couldn't shake the feeling that that something was watching him. So after a long morning of not seeing any deer or anything, he finally decided to head back home. And he crossed a barbed wire fence. He pushed the middle strand down and crawled through and came up and started going up a little hill. And he just got the feeling hit him real hard again to something was watching him and to turn around. So finally he turned around and he said he saw this big hairy beast, this creature, just step over the fence, like maybe we would step over a kid's toy in the floor, just like it was not really nothing. But it stepped over and it stopped and looked at him, and he looked at the creature, and he said it was just frozen. It was petrified. It was scared to death. And so finally the creature, he just threw his leg back over the fence and it stepped all the way over the fence and just walked off into the woods. And he said, I've said a lot of things, but that time I was so scared. I'd never been that scared before. So I thought that was a pretty cool story. I'd had him tell a couple of friends that same story, and he's always told it the same way. So this uncle, he's pretty no-nonsense guy, he's straight up, and honestly, I believe him. He seemed kind of rattled when he would tell the story, kind of nervous, but he's got no reasons to make things up. So that was one story.
Yeah, Derek Morse has a lot of stories, and if you haven't heard that episode, it is Tales from the Trail. He's out of Eastern Band Cherokee. He's got a lot of stories. So if you haven't heard those stories, Tales from the Trail, part 1 and 2, I'm gonna have him on again. I'm gonna try to work out a time with him. He's got a few more stories he'd like to share, and he also has some ideas of kind of what he thinks some things are. And but he was my first ever guest on the Warcry podcast, and I can't tell. I was honestly, I'll say this now that we're 2 years. This is almost a year ago and some change. I was actually kind of nervous about having people on my podcast for a long time. I was kind of real nervous about it. And so I did like a almost like a kind of like a traditional interview, magazine interview with him. And so I'd ask him a question, and he'd send me a voice message, and then so on and so forth. And so we went back and forth for quite a while on that. And so he had, a few parts of that interview. That's from his first interview with him. And so, it's crazy that this podcast has went where it's went. I've had so many people who I didn't know listen to the podcast and be like, hey, man, keep going. Because there was times throughout this 2 years, and I'm just like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I didn't really want to do it. I have things in my life that have happened, especially in 2023, that I was having a hard time. And so it's people like Derek and people like Kevin Nez from the Mac Nez podcast. I have a few buddies of mine who listen to the podcast. Just basically kind of giving good words. And here we are, 2 years into this. An episode that I had done, I'd say probably almost 2 years ago, or not 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago. But this clip is from that episode. It comes from a documentary about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. So check it out, guys.
Help us. If you gave me some medicine for my bullets, Indian medicine for my bullets, to make them accurate, to be used, so they would only go to the guilty party or whatever, and he gave me some medicine that would help me hide, and he gave me some medicine to help me track somebody. If I got on the trail of an investigation of somebody, then once we reached a certain point, if I put this medicine down in a track or in the concept or the trail, same idea, that I would never lose this man. I would be on him all the time.
And that's one of my favorite clips. That's one thing about the Girl Scout murders, and that hits closer to home for me because I'm from Northeast Oklahoma, out there in Tahlequah, and having family that lived out that way, kind of where he got caught, it's interesting to me, and it always, there's all these theories about what happened, about um, how he escaped, um, and one thing that's always weird, and this is, yeah, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this. There was a documentary that came out, I believe, a couple years ago, or it might have been a year, but Kristen Chenoweth was kind of like the narrator, I guess you could say, and she had come home to do some things here in BA, and Broken Arrow, for those who don't know what BA is, and she went back to the site. And one thing that the now sheriff, talked about was, like, they had the swimming pool and all, like, or the different grounds, not swimming pool, but different, like, I don't know why I said swimming pool, but like different, like, little campgrounds and stuff. And one thing that is still there, I believe, as of like 2023. So where that one of the girls was laying there, passed away, murdered. That medicine that he used had killed that tree. That tree is only dead in that one spot. And that's one thing that they always say, that, with that bad stuff, that it's can kill things around him. And so that's where, I always thought that was kind of crazy too about that story, is that that tree is still basically there, still, um, still kind of, or it's dead now. But that's a cool story, or that story about using that bullet. I've heard a few stories in my life when it comes to that medicine. When he's talking about, they always used to say, and I was told this like when I was a young guy, but basically if you got somebody bothering you, especially if it's like an owl or like a bird or something, you could get some, go to get it doctored up, your bullets, and it never, in like Harvey Pratt, and he's one of the lead investigators. But you just never miss. You won't miss your target, and so it's pretty crazy. Um, it's pretty crazy that, um, those things are still there, it's still alive and kicking and whatnot. Now, this next clip that I'm going to play, um, it comes out of my university that I graduated from. This comes from the Cherokee Nation YouTube, but it's pretty good insider to, like, how creepy NSU is, especially at night. Check it out.
Hall is the oldest building on campus. Many stories revolve around this historic building, as well as others on the campus. Stories of strange sightings and eerie encounters. Brad Agnew, a retired professor of NSU, recalls a worker who says he encountered the ghost of a past president of the school.
There was a custodian over there who quit. He resigned his position because he was working in the building all by himself. John Vaughn, that he saw haunting the building. He saw him. And there is a picture of John Vaughn in the library. And people have told me that he absolutely, he wouldn't go back in the building. He quit right then and there and would not come back.
Some believe that the ghost of Florence Wilson haunts the hall. Wilson was a principal who spent 26 years at the seminary in the 19th century. They also believe she never left the school. Haley Stocks, a student at NSU in 2012, believes she saw the ghost of Florence Wilson while leaving the school one evening.
I was coming home late at night, and I knew the place might be haunted, and so I'd always been curious, will I ever see a ghost? will I ever see someone? So I was driving through town late one night, and I looked up in between the pillars, and I saw a dark, shadowy figure with a long, billowing dress, maybe a dark hat, um, and it just gave me chills. I knew it wasn't something natural. It was something a little off about what I saw, and I think it was Flo. I think because I know she haunts the place, so.
Other occurrences of unusual happenings have also taken place at the historic school throughout the years. Perhaps even more will surface as time goes by.
Yeah, but as time has went on, the NSU campus is really creepy. She had, like I said in the clip, a woman. Now I have heard from different people that were walking by the seminary at night that they saw shadows, like almost following them. Somebody told me when I was going there that they were walking home from. There's a cafe, so like you walk, so there's like a little roundabout, and if you take a left, you can kind of like it's like a loop that goes all the way up to seminary and comes back down, and you can park. Well, they're walking on that roundabout headed towards the dorms, going up through and then basically going to walk across to the rec hall where they hold stuff. And I've told the story before, but like I've heard that story multiple times when it looked like they said someone was like hiding behind, and they gave us this little app that basically if you feel like you're being watched, campus police will come and escort you wherever you need to go. And there was different people that would see that, and see those things. I had my I can't remember the name of that course, but an English teacher, English one or what? Not English, whatever it was called. Literature. I don't know. He was. He was a military. I think he was. I want to say he was Navy, and he was an old guy, old guy, and he always canceled class. Man, thank God you did. There was sometimes be rugged trying to get up after a long night, just be ragged, but still make it barely. But then you go to the classroom door and it'd be like, "Oh, sorry, canceled due to health," and I'm like, I'm just getting mad, like, "Oh, I can't believe I got up for this for no reason." But I asked him one time. I said, I heard it's haunted in here." He looked at me. He said, "Yeah, it can be a little spooky up here," because he was on the second floor. And he said one time that he was just like packing up ready to go, and he thought he heard somebody walking like up the stairs, and he looked, there was nobody there. The computer lab where that was at, where all the computers are downstairs. As soon as you walk in from, I believe, like you're coming, like you're headed to the science building. You walk through those side doors and you go on down, and so it was on the right, I believe. Things have changed. I haven't been there since 2017 or 2017, 2016. But dang, almost 10 years ago. I'm getting old, man. Dang. You blink 10 years out of high school, you blink again, you're going to be 20 years out of high school. It's crazy. But it was really weird that he basically was walking out the building one night and he thought he saw somebody in the computer lab. And he kind of, it's after hours. He's like, "What are you doing here? There's nobody in there." So I've heard different stories like that. And, with this, with NSU and Tahlequah being, really big in my life, so I have family there now to this day. Shout out to my uncles. But, it's crazy, this podcast and 2 years in, one of my favorite stories, I'm giving you guys clips of my favorite episodes that I've done, and but a story, that has really always kind of made me, be like, that's interesting. Was a story that I don't know, man. I don't really know that I've even told this story on this podcast. But basically, I had a buddy of mine, or I guess he was a supervisor, or whatever. He had some things. He had somebody visiting him during the day and at night, and he would tell me what this thing was and the problem that he was having with this thing. I may have never told this story, y'all. Sometimes I forget, but I might have did it on This Is Creepy. But if this is never before, if you guys have never heard this, then awesome. But he had this thing bothering him at night, and it was pertaining to somebody who he knew and was a coworker. Well, it was really his one of his staff members, and basically he couldn't see it, but his wife could see it, and only his wife could see it, and she described it as a really skinny man, and it looked like he had almost like a wolf, like clothing, like he had a wolf pelt on his back. And I might have told this before, but that's one of my favorite stories that someone has told me, and then I've shared on this podcast. And he took a picture of it. And when he took that picture, he said when he took it, he couldn't see anything, but his wife could see something. And he asked me, he said, well, how do I get rid of this thing? I said, you just have to, what are you, I asked him, are you Christian? What are you, what do you believe? And he was like, well, I really don't believe in much. Like, I believe there's a higher power, but I don't have I said, just, basically tell it to go away. And don't be scared of it, but you need to delete that picture too, or it'll hang around. But he said it looked like a wolf, but it was skinny and it stood up. It was real like bones. It just looked frail. And he saw it for 2 days in a row, and his wife wouldn't leave the house. She was so scared because she was the only one seeing it. He couldn't see it, but he could tell she was scared. And then he would leave for work, and he'd come and tell me. And I said, well, I'll pray for you. I'll do what I need to do on my end to see if I can help you. And it eventually went away, but I found out who the culprit was and what was going on. And that'll be a story for another day. But another story that was told to me that I've always really enjoyed, and I don't think I may have told this on this podcast. I may have told it on another podcast. Sometimes these stories, not stories, but these interviews and stuff, they basically kind of run together. But this man was Osage. And there's details in his story that I've told before to people, and they were like, I've heard that before. He was coming home from work. He got out of his car. And when he looked over underneath his tree that's out in his yard, he noticed that there was somebody standing underneath the tree. And he was like, what is that? So he looked, he said, hey, who are you? What can I do? What are you doing here? What can I help you with? And the thing, whatever this was standing, and it all of a sudden, he said it didn't walk. It floated. Like it just barely off the ground. And he kept going. And he got up real close to him and then woofed away. And he described this thing as almost like rail thin. And he had like a little a coat, or like I always look in my mind like what a monk wears when they got their hood on, and they're like a brown kind of, he said it was like maybe deer skin, but it was brown. And he was like, "What?" He was like, "That was weird." He goes in the house and he calls his dad. He's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "What? Hey, I had something weird happen to me, letting know kind of But so all of a sudden he hears his dad. Hey, he said, "Hey, I gotta let you go. There's someone at the door." And he's like, "No, don't." He's like, "Don't answer. Don't answer. Don't answer. Don't answer." And his dad answered the door. He said, "I'll let you go," and he hung up and he went and answered the door. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's just, kind of, in his bedroom, and all of a sudden he sounded like trumpets in the room, like real loud, like a dun 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 dun, like type noise. But I don't know if it made that noise. It just was like a trumpet, like real loud in the room. And he was like, "What in the world is that?" And he was like, "What is going on?" Then he comes to find out his dad had passed away. And he basically, him and his dad had the same name. And a lot of people say that they were real close, like they were real, like people would tell him that, like, "Man, you were just like your dad. You look just like him, like a younger version." Like they were basically twins. Dad was older. And I asked him, I said, "Well, what do you think it was?" He said, "I don't know, man." He's like, I don't know if it was death, but I was always told, if you hear knocking at the door at a certain time, you just don't answer it. You just gotta let it pass. It's crazy. That story was told to me like 6 years ago. But I've shared it on the podcast, and if I'm probably missing a bunch of details because it's not as fresh in my mind, but I'll remember it, later on, be like, "Dang, I should have told that detail." But when my grandma passed, she was in with my grandpa and my uncle and my cousin and my aunt, and they knew she was passing. She was getting close, and all of a sudden, middle of the night, they always say that you got to stay with your relatives. It's kind of a native tradition. There may be people out there that do this too, but it's like a wake. You stay with the body until they pass, and you ensure you stay with them until you ensure that they pass on, peacefully. And they always say, my grandpa always told me this. He told me this, when my grandma died, but he told me this multiple times. But, like, if you hear knocking on the door as your relative's passing, you don't want to answer, because that's, that could be somebody looking to take them, like take their energy, their I don't want to say soul, but their essence of their life, basically getting in the way of them passing peacefully. And that always creeped me out. I always got real creeped out about that. And something weird too. I never told this story. It's crazy that, like, I'll say something I remember. I was living out in East Tulsa for a while, and I had weird things happening to me. My loft, it was weird. My loft was either really cold or really hot, and it was always a different temperature than the regular rest of the apartment. And one night, my dogs, anytime something comes on the porch, like if I ordered like groceries or something or whatever, and it's during COVID time, like, they would bark. They'd go crazy, like, "Oh," just going crazy. Now, this is like maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and this happened this made me happen for like a couple months. But one night I was in bed, and my window to where my room was, basically was right next to the stairs, like the window, or like where the stairs come up. And my dogs are sleeping, in the floor, and one was in the living room. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, out of nowhere, somebody was knocking on the door, and I thought I heard it. I was like, it woke me up. It was like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, whoa! And I got up and was like, kind of like delirious. I got up and looked at the peephole. I didn't open it, I didn't open it, guys. I'm still here. I'm not, but it did it. And I was like, what in the world? And I looked at people and there was nobody there. I looked out of my bedroom and I didn't see anybody because you can hear when someone goes up and down my stairs at the time because it creaked really loud. You can, it makes a thud noise against the wall. And so I was, what the hell was that? So I'm like, what? I'm like, oh man. So, couple more nights pass and I'm laying in bed and I'm about to fade out. And I hear it again. Boom, boom, boom. This couple nights later. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, what? I get up all crazy. I'm like, first thing I go is I go and look out that window to see if it's somebody, and there was nobody there. They would have not had enough time from the time that they knocked on the window, woke me up. I rolled out of bed and looked out that window as fast as I possibly could. And there was nobody there. That was kind of a weird time, especially with COVID. There's a lot of bad energy running around. Had a lot of different people passing. My daughter was born in 2021, so a lot of things were happening in that time for me, and wasn't the best year of my life. But my daughter kind of being born made the year better, but a lot better. But yeah, would you say, yeah, like if you had a relative, or like they'll, someone will give you a sign before they pass, type of thing. But that reminded me of, of my time, especially that guy that was Osage telling that story. And to me, it's kind of it was a real sad story in my opinion, because it's like, man, you're like, you find out that knock on the door was like maybe not death, and like he died, like, and his dad passed that evening. They always say that sometimes death comes knocking, and you just don't know when it's going to happen. Yeah, it's crazy. I never heard from that guy again. He got real emotional when he told that story. So if you're out here and you hear me talking about your story, I hope everything's all right with you. But let's get to the chat. Let's see who's in here. I haven't really been keeping up with it. Let's see here. Solo Vino, what's going on? You subscribe, thank you. God and family always come first, but so far I'm enjoying hearing your shows. Well, I appreciate it. Let's see here. Miss Lisa's okay. Moved from Wyoming to BA, Oklahoma. Let's see here. Lisa Ray asked me a question. What keeps you motivated in staying on with your podcast? That's a great question. Sometimes, man, there's a lot of times, like, this is crazy. This is kind of like maybe a depression thing, I guess, but, or like a, anxiety thing, whatever you want to call it. But like, you ever made plans with people and you were really excited when you made those plans? You're like, yeah, I can't wait to do that. And when the day comes, you're like, I don't want to. That's a lot of times with this podcast. Like, I'm really excited to do it. But one thing about this podcast, and sometimes talking about the things that I talk about, it can just be too much. Like you feel things, sometimes you talk about things happen. And I'm not always the best being transparent about praying and smoking off and doing those things. Sometimes it'd be, midnight getting off on some of these streams, like especially with Halloween, I had people in different time zones and I'm like, I am so tired. It's like 11:45. I just crash out. And the next day, I'll have somebody walking around up here and there's nobody up here type thing, but what keeps me motivated to do it is I've had people reach out to me, basically saying that the podcast has helped them, that the podcast explains things that happen to them. A lot of non-natives reach out to me about some of the things that they talk about, the things that they experience. It's just kind of like a a full circle moment, I guess you could say. I had people who had LP on their property and they were messing with them. Like the LP were messing with them, and they were afraid that they were going to take their kids, because I told a story about I had a relative who got kind of taken away, and then I had my own LP story, from my days at Merle Home Park, and so that's what keeps me motivated. Another thing too is like not trying to boost my ego, but it's kind of nice to see the numbers. See people that enjoy the podcast. They like the YouTube. It's nice. It's just a nice little like, hey, yeah, what I'm doing is cool. Like people think it's cool. I think one of the best motivators that I had during Halloween is that a childhood friend of mine, one of my good friends. He looked at me. He goes, man. He said, "You got something, man. I don't know what it is." He said, "But I love listening to your podcast. I never tell you that I listen to it." And like I didn't know he did listen to it. I thought it was just, but he was like, "Man, you're like doing a really great job." And like everything that you're talking about is like things that like I remember, this person telling or that person, because like I have kind of a weird memory. Like if something affects me in like a way that is like prominent to me, I will never forget it. And like I have a bad problem of like things that don't matter to me but matter to other people, and I forget, but they remember. It's just I kind of feel bad because like I usually try to remember everything, but sometimes things just pass by. But that keeps me motivated. But also too, like I enjoy telling stories. I enjoy doing live streams. I mean, we went like 3 hours on one of them. I love it. I love talking to people like Hunters of the Paranormal, After Walker Paranormal, Rod from Lodge Tales, Dono from Rescue. Just all these people that have been on my podcast. Patrick Meekin, man, me and him talked for like 30 minutes after the podcast, and there was so much juice and like so much dang meat left on the bone. I'll say this. After that episode, there was something that happened to me in Houston that I've never told publicly. I've only told like 4 people in my life that like he thinks that I saw something that like a lot of people don't really see. And that may be a Patreon episode because I don't want to talk about the organization that it's connected to. It's a little scary to me. But I'll probably put that on the Patreon, and if they hear it, they hear it. Then but it really scared me for a lot of years, and it made me do some things like change my phone number. Just weird, like weird. It was a really weird encounter with somebody who I don't know if they're real. Like I don't know if they were like a human being. It was weird. But yeah, like just talking to different people, like it's just cool. And there's more people that have reached out to me that want to come on. There's actually a few people that I'm like, okay, like I need to kind of refresh my memory on the casino Bigfoot footage out here in Oklahoma. I need to go back and reread those messages and maybe ask some more questions. I have 2 people now who can corroborate, if I can say it, corroborate. But it's just cool talking to people, and like people, will say, "Man, you've really helped me out." So it's just that's a big thing. Barry Browning, how's it going, man? You doing all right tonight? Mysterious Nocturnum, how's it going? So yeah, we're almost at an hour and a half. I don't know how much longer we'll go. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that story. I'll tell you a less creepy. Man, it's probably pretty creepy actually. And it honestly kind of makes me. It's why I kind of get nervous in big crowds now. Like it's one of the reasons why I don't do it anymore. Like huge crowds, like the Houston Rodeo or like the state fair, or like it makes me like I'm like have my guard up 100%. But I'll tell this story because I don't think I've ever told it publicly, anyways. So I was in Houston. It wasn't. So we stayed in a different place. Like the previous trips I made to Houston, which I need to share that. I need to repost the doll story about the house. Like the first time we went to Houston, and I stayed in basically a dead man's bed with all these creepy ass dolls. I need to repost that. People probably haven't even seen that or hadn't even heard that story. I mean, I've told it live, but anyways, so we're staying at a new place in the Woodlands, kind of outside of Houston, and this location is really nice. Like it's really like well built. There's people literally at all times of the night walking around, and you know, I was with one of my friends, and like we were, my best friend at the time, and we were staying at her cousin's house. Well, her husband wasn't there, like he was at work or something. So I was like, well, I guess I'll go out. It's probably 8 o'clock. Sun's just now. It's like after, basically about to be summertime, or spring break, basically. And so, I decided to go out, and so I go, and I'm watching. I can't remember. I think it might have been the NBA. I think it was going on at the time. And so I I go out, and like this place that I'm at is literally just like there's this like the house or the apartment building we were staying in is real like a big high rise, and it had like a pond, and then you walk around the pond. You go like to the main street in the Woodlands, and then you kind of take another turn into the woods and back out. Really nice, like really nice, like really well built up, really like a lot of lights, a lot of people are out. And so I'm walking back. And I've realized that I took the wrong path. And so I had to walk all the way around the pond. Because at the time, like I just like I went too far down the path and got off, and then went to the place to watch the game. And like I said, this is probably 11 o'clock at night. This is like a random like Wednesday or Tuesday. And so I'm walking back, and I get this, and people have described this as like when prey, like when you feel like you're prey, like you can feel that something's like after you or someone's after you. And I got this weird feeling, and like I'm in cowboy boots, like I just came back from the rodeo. I'm like, I'm trying, like I'm, having a good time. And I'm walking, and I'm getting to that patch of the forest where it gets really dark. And like I look up and I see somebody, and it was like a shadow. I couldn't really tell who it was, or if like it was a man or female, or I couldn't tell. But I can tell that they're pacing me. So basically there was like a trail by the water, which I was on, and there was like a few people that I was passing. But as I like got almost to like the bridge where like I don't know if it was like a scooter thing or whatever, but there was like a little like a little thing where you kind of like went next to the bridge, and like there was a lane for the scooters. It was like the main traffic, but then there was like this set of woods where you took this turn and you went straight into the apartment complex that I was staying. Well, there's a trail that went up from the main kind of like part in the Woodlands, and this is like it's in Texas, and basically it kind of went like up and like up into this, I don't know, like this building or whatever, and then it would come back down, and those two paths meet right at the edge of the little wooded area. So I remember, I remember being really scared. Like I haven't been scared. Like I don't get really scared of humans unless it's like I know that they're really about to do something to me. Like I've only felt that way a few times in my life. And so I'm walking, and I look up, and I'm making it seem like I'm not paying attention, but I see them, and it's a person walking kind of with the hood on. It's getting, it's a little chilly. It's still like it's in like the middle of March. And I look and I can see them, but they're not walking like at a pace of their own. They're like trying to like stay behind me, where like out of my peripheral. And I remember kind of catching them, like catching their gaze, like we made eye contact, and I caught him. Like I was like, oh, and I could tell that they're speeding up a little bit. Like, and like they said, they're still a pretty decent far away. Like they're just coming around the bend, like, and then like basically coming down. So they're still about half a football field away from me. And I remember looking, and they start like they see that I see them, and I start running. I ain't never run that fast in my life. I have like $400 on me, like an idiot. All cash. I brought all cash. I didn't want to like use my debit card, so like I left my debit card and I had all cash. And so like I took off running. All of a sudden, I look out of my peripheral as I'm passing that, like where the two paths meet. They're running too. So I run into the wood, into the little, wooded area, because that's where the path takes you, and then you make a little turn. Then you go, like you can either go down by the balconies of the hotel or the apartment where I can't get in, or you go straight and you take a left and you go down the main, like the main street, like where there's people coming and going. Well, I knew I wasn't going to be able to run that fast in my boots, but I felt like I was running as fast as I could, and I could hear that person coming, like down this little hill, going into the woods. So I like crouched. I stepped off the side of the path, crouched, not like on my belly or anything, but just kind of like looked, and they ran by, and I could see them going down, like coming out of the woods and going down to the balcony, and then they stop. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I got to go. I take off running, and I'm going, and I go like the main way where I'm supposed to go to get into the building. And they see me run by, and they start coming after me. And I turn that corner, and I'm running, and all of a sudden I hear those footsteps behind me stop. And then there was a couple, and I said, and I like literally, I remember screaming at them, stop, open the door, open the door. And so the couple comes out, and they open the door, and I get into a apartment building that's not even the one I'm supposed to be in. And literally I said, hey, there's somebody back that way, and be careful. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, there's somebody back there. And like when I saw them pass by, I thought I saw like a shiny object, like something kind of like almost like a knife. Could have been a knife. I don't know. It could have been a watch. But I remember seeing a shiny object in their either because in their left hand, because they were walking that way. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe it was just somebody taking a leisurely stroll, and maybe I spooked them out. I don't know. But that was the last time I went to Houston, because I realized, like, yep, this city is a little too big for me. But basically I escaped, got back in the apartment, and I'm all out of breath, and I'm banging, like I basically just like stumble into the apartment, like out of breath, like shook. And they're like, hey, what's going on? Like, my friend was still awake, awake on the couch watching TV. And I'm like, bro, I don't know what that was. Like, I don't know what just happened to me, but like, somebody was like, they were chasing me. And she was like, where? I was like, just right out here. And she's like, I can, like, because she could, like, where the balcony of the like, it was like the second story or whatever. Basically, you could see like the path. And so I look back down there, and I don't see anybody down there. And there was like all these people walking. Like it was almost weird. Like there was nobody on this trail when I was like getting to this area, but you could see people come in and out. So I don't know if it was just like a glitch or something, but it was weird. It was definitely it was a weird trip, to say the least. And that was, I haven't been that scared in quite a while, quite a long time. Like when it comes to like my life. because I don't know if that person was going to rob me. I didn't know what that was. And so, like, after that trip, I said, yeah, I'm never going to Houston again. I ain't been to Houston. I ain't been into Texas. Maybe I should have learned my lesson with the first trip, but sleeping in a dead man's bed, it's crazy. But yeah, so many stories. I don't know. Sometimes, like, people have asked me, like, how are you in these situations? Like, how are you, like, seeing these things? And I really don't know. I really do not know. Like, my wife will, like, talk about something, like, oh, dang, I got a story about that. And then, like, I'll tell her a story about, like, you know, something, whatever we're talking about. And she's like, I hate that, like, every time that we talk about something, you have a story. And I'm like, I don't know how I have these stories. Or like, if someone will tell me a story about something that happens, like, maybe it's just I think it's just maybe the higher powered, like, hey, this guy can tell stories, and maybe he's a a loudspeaker for somebody. But yeah, it's I've had a lot of people saying that, like, man, like, how do you have all these stories? Like, dude, I've done a lot of stupid stuff, but I've also, like, been at the wrong place and wrong time in a lot of situations, and it's like, don't know how it happens. Well, yeah, I just don't know how it happens. Have you ever written a book recounting your stories? If not, would you consider it? Honestly, no, I don't think I will write a book about my stories. Um, Part of me, like, my grandpa he had books of people's stories, and if I ever get a hold of them, I'm gonna try to see if I can maybe, like, I don't know, maybe make them public or something. I doubt it, because some of those stories are pretty, pretty crucial. Like, there's some pretty scary stories that my grandpa has collected, and when he was alive, he collected a bunch of stories, and that's kind of like, why I collect stories. Um, a story that was told to me. This is, I was gonna tell this on This Is Creepy, but yeah, never say never. Yeah, I don't know. Writing a book. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have time. Maybe if I sit down. The only problem with writing a book is, like, I was an English major for the first, like, 2.5 years, 3 years of college, and so, like, in my brain, everything has to be perfect, like, grammatically correct, and I was I was always an A+ writer, and so, like, I always everything. So I was neurotic about it, and so I had teachers who would be like, this is fine," and I'm like, "No, it is not fine. It has to be perfect. There's more." Like, maybe if I add the back scene, like, writing a paper about whatever. What if I give background on this person or give background on that person, and it just, like, next thing I know, like, my paper would be, I don't know, 50 pages long. When I wrote my thesis, I guess you can call it, for my degree, she's like, "Yeah, I need something like 20 pages. I need everything sourced, all this stuff." And it was like a health and wellness, like, paper that I wrote. Mine was like 37 pages, so 17 pages over, like, what I needed, just because I was, like, it had to be perfect. I spent like 40 hours on one paper, and, like, it's just that I can't see myself writing a book, but we'll see. But this next story, that was told to me, by a guy who works security, um, for one of these local tribes. I won't give the tribe because, he works for them still. Um, but he was working over. I cannot think of the name of the building now. I had it, but it's over by Oral Roberts University. Those towers over there, I guess you could say. They're abandoned now. It used to be an old hospital, I guess. He had never worked at this place before. And he was telling me a story. I could tell he was struggling to tell me the story. But like he had to tell, like I don't know why he told me the story, but he told it to me. And he's like, yeah, it was my first day over. Like I've been, in this doing security for like a long time. And like, I'm never scared. Like I've had to get into altercations with bigger, like really big men and this and this. I'm not really scared. So they're like, all right, man, well, we need you to go over this building and we need you to make rounds because they had a lot of vagrant, like a lot of vandalism, stuff like that in this building. And I can't, like I said, I can't remember. It's a very well-known building in Tulsa. If you're from Tulsa and you hear this, it's over by ORU. I think it might be over there by Victory Christian, I think too. But anyways, so his person he was working with, he was working the cameras. And he said, hey, man, I need you to go up there and make rounds. So he makes rounds. The buddy takes the bottom ones. He takes the top two, I think. So he's making rounds, and he gets up to one of the floors, and he thinks he hears somebody kind of like messing around upstairs, up the at the very end of the hallway. And he's like, hey, you need to cut it out. I will. He's basically like, I will pop a cap in your ass if you don't get your asses out of here, like right now. Like, I swear to you. He was really like trying, because he was getting kind of like, why are they not coming out? And so he walks down there and he don't see anybody. Like, there's nobody down there. So he starts getting kind of spooked out. He's like, what? So he's like, all right, let me just check these rooms real quick. Boom, there's nobody in there. He takes all back to the elevator. As he's walking into the elevator, he's going to press that number. And so like when you walk into the elevator and you turn to your left and you put that, you put the number you're supposed to go to, and then you turn back towards the door. When he turned back to the door, there was a woman with black hair standing like 3 inches from his face. He was like frozen. And I said, what face did she make? She said it was like a blank expression, but she looked like old. Like she looked frail. I said, was her hair down like below her eyes? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but her hair looked gross. And he basically like looked at her, and then like she just basically was like in his face, and then like went back, like took us like some steps back, and then literally just dissipated, like just like a fog. He was hitting that button so hard, he was like, oh, get down there, get down there. And he told the guy that was down there, who was back at the cameras, he said, bro, he's like, no, I'm not making no more rounds. I'm good. I no. And the guy that was down there kind of laughed at him and said, why? He's like, I don't know. I don't want to go back up there. You can tell the boss, I don't care. You can fire me, whatever you want to do. And so the boss said, you need to go up there. He said, nope. So then they ended up taking him off that. But I asked him, I said, do you think that guy that was with you, Saul, has seen that before? He said, yeah. Because the way he looked at me, like when he said take the top, like the upper levels, it was like he like didn't want to go up there. Like he was spooked out. Like he knew something was up there. So later that evening, when he gets off and he goes and like, goes to bed, he started having this weird dream. And he said that in his dream, he woke up in his dream and she was there. And like, she didn't say anything, but she looked the exact same. And he's like, what is this? And he said that I didn't feel fear, but I felt like she almost came there to tell me that she wasn't going to hurt me. He said, I felt like a peace after that. He said, but I was so scared in my dream, and I'm still scared telling you this, about the woman who's in that tower. And I literally remember his face. Like, he's a big dude. Like, this dude was a big dude. And he was he works up in like North Tulsa. He does security. Like, he has seen a lot of stuff, and he was like shook by this. And it was funny. He was like, yo, he's like, I'm not like every white person in all these horror movies. I'm getting out of here. I'm gone. Like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to see that. But he told me that was a story that was told to me like a couple weeks ago. Probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I guess since I have a few news stories that I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and let it rip. We're at 1 hour and 40. Give y'all something fresh. So I was talking to somebody who works at this nursing home in Broken Arrow, just a little bit, not far from my house. And every time someone tells me that they work in nursing, and they're working in nursing homes, I always ask them, "Is it creepy?" And this woman laughed. She started laughing. She said, "Hell yeah, it is." And I ain't working night shifts no more because of this. And I said, "Oh," I said, "What happened? Tell me what happened." And she goes, "Oh, well, you're not going to believe me." I said, "Ma'am, I've heard a lot of stories. I've had weird things happen to me. Trust me, I believe you." She goes, "Okay." The thing that a lot of people see in nursing homes is the shadows. They see the shadows going from room to room. And, she was telling me there was she's like, literally, I will see someone and they'll be in the best spirits. Like they will be so happy. And then the next day they're gone. And she said one day they had me working the night shift because we just couldn't have, there was nobody wanting to work the night shift that night. So she stepped in and said, "I'll work it, whatever." They just had a birthday party for one of the residents. And so there was balloons in, different rooms. Well, they're making rounds and, she's going down this hallway. And at the end of the hallway, and it's weird. I hate this. This is so creepy. And I was like, dang, that's crazy. But she started looking and she shined she kind of had this little, I guess a light or whatever that's over the door or whatever. And she said basically it looked like somebody was holding a balloon and walking down the hall. And there was nobody there, but the balloon was walking as if someone was pulling the balloon. Boy, she said, I took off so freaking fast and went back to the security guard. I said, "There's somebody in here." And the security guard kind of laughed. He said, "Oh, you saw something, didn't you?" She's like, "Yeah." But basically it was she said, basically I saw someone basically pulling a balloon down the hall and there was nobody there. The balloon wasn't hitting it was the balloon was someone was holding it at their chest. Like a little kid holds a balloon. She's like, but it was like an adult. You could tell it was someone an adult size. Basically it was they were just walking with the balloon. She said, I've never worked the night shift again after that. And I was like, I don't blame you. That's crazy. But she's like, yeah, it's crazy to talk to somebody and then literally not even 4 hours later they're dead. They seem perfectly fine. And they just passed. But she also says it's something when they get before someone dies, they get a lot of energy. It's their last, fight. And then they I guess that's all they have. It's an interesting world out here. But if you have a nursing home story like that, let me know. I'd like to hear them. I like these nursing home stories. They're creepy. Eventually, I'll do a compilation. I only have a handful, but still, they're creepy. But this year, like I said, man, this year has flown by so fast. 2 years of the podcast. I'm not stopping. I told you guys in Halloween I'm probably going to take a hiatus. Nah, I think I'm going to keep going. Now, when it gets to the week of Thanksgiving, yeah, you probably won't see. You probably won't get an episode or whatever. But I do have a Patreon. It has basically, right now it has 2 episodes. I reviewed the Martha Stewart documentary. If you haven't seen it, Martha Stewart is a wild one. She's wild. She says a lot of things that are kind of crazy. But I give my opinion about it. And then I also did a election preview on the Patreon. So if you want to know what kind of what I thought about who was going to win and whatnot, then there it is. I'm the next content I'll be posting on there will be an interview. And then I'll do the Bigfoot video from a Oklahoma casino, native casino. That'll be one of the next posts. This is Creepy part 7, part 6, whichever one. The next episode of This is Creepy will be another live stream. So get your stories in, realwarcrypod@gmail.com, or message me on Facebook, Yahola Tiger. Let me know where you heard me, and send me some stories. I like when people tell me stories. I got a few over the last couple weeks. I just recently was on the Mac Nez podcast. I talk a lot of mental health. Some really tough topics for me on that podcast that we got into. I have a hard time, sharing a lot of my private life when it comes to people I've lost, and a lot of the grief and pain that I have carried for now 30. No, I'll say 20 years. Losing family members. Unexpectedly losing family members. I lost 2 cousins when I was in elementary school, and then I lost my really, really close cousin when I was a freshman in college. Kind of derailed me a little bit, and then I had its after effects. But I talk about a lot of that with Mr. Kevin Nez on the Mac Nez podcast, and then also tell stories on there too. Good guy. I'm glad that we found each other, even though we met. What's crazy about Kevin and I is I actually met him at the Res Dogs premiere and season 2 premiere, and I didn't realize that I met him. And then he said, "I've met you before." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Were you at?" I said, "Oh my God!" And then we have a picture together. We took a picture together. That just goes to show you, man. Just my memory. It's just like one in, one out the other. On some things, but I'm glad that he's invited me on his podcast. I did a podcast with Lodge Tales. I'm not sure when that's coming out, but that's coming down the pipeline. I tell a bunch of creepy stories, and it's a good podcast. If you haven't heard the Halloween special, Levon tells some crazy stories, man. I couldn't believe it. But and Rod has his stories. I'm gonna have to have him come on and tell Goatman stories, because I often wonder if the Goatman's the devil. That was something I need to ask him. But Miss Lisa says, "I'm sorry to hear that. I lost my mom last Tuesday on election day. I have not processed, but I know the moment will happen when least suspect it." Yeah, man, that's rough, Lisa. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, losing someone is just, and losing people that you don't really expect to lose. It's just like it hit me in a way where I basically, like every other person on my mom's side of the family, like they just work themselves to death so they forget about it. Kind of pushing it to the side, and then that's when things happen. You just lose your, you just do things that are out of characteristic because you're just hurting. I've definitely been the cause of some of that in my life, and then I've had family members too that things like that's happened. So to everyone who has lost somebody, I hope you hearing me say that, like, you're not alone, on these things. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm on an island, but I know that's not true. But I appreciate everyone who has supported the podcast for the last 2 years. I cannot say enough how much I am truly, 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 truly appreciative of that. And all the hundreds of people who have reached out to me, I've literally did a count. I'm like, literally over 100 plus people have reached out to me over the course of these 2 years, which to me is a lot of people. I mean, I know some people get thousands, but hundreds of people, wanting to hear my opinion and wanting to, go back and forth and share things. And like I had a gentleman just here recently, basically share that he was on a long, he didn't know his family, and he finally found out that his family's in Muskogee Creek. So it's just cool, that people reach out to me, and I apologize. Like, I got a lot of things on my end, but just know, maybe if my replies are short, it's not because I don't care. It's just because I got things going on. But it's cool that you're sharing your life with me as I'm sharing my life with you guys on this podcast. So, cheers to 2 years and many more. You guys can catch me on Facebook, Yahola Tiger, TikTok, Warcry Pod. Let's see here, X or Twitter, Warcry Pod. And then if you have if you want to email me a story or pictures or whatever, realwarcrypod@gmail.com. And like I said, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you guys, and I will catch you on the next one.